Plotix is an inclusive community dedicated to innovation and excellence in model political competitions. We desire to groom the leaders of tomorrow by providing a touch of political and diplomatic gold to the young students from school level to university level. Diplotix supports students and scholars from all over the world and contributes knowledge and expertise locally, nationally, and internationally. Such exposure would be directed towards developing and maintaining overall growth of political as well as diplomatic skills, which can facilitate peaceful resolution. I feel honored today to welcome our esteemed speaker for this session, Ms. Sasha Matar. Ms. Sasha Matar is a Lebanese journalist and editor. She practiced law for an year and then decided to explore other areas that would help her in becoming the analyst she is today. Ms. Matar believes that law is shaped by social norms, politics, and the economy. Thus, she decided to explore further those areas through practice and research. Ms. Matar comes from diverse disciplines. She graduated with a bachelor in law from the Lebanese University and is currently pursuing her master's degree in political sciences with a minor in international organizations. She has participated in and judged multiple moot courts and helped organizing some of them in her own country of origin. Aside from her legal and political background, she is a conflict resolution coach. Ms. Matar received her coaching training at Coach Transformation Academy in Dubai. She is a geopolitical, economic, and financial researcher and analyst. She is an aspiring mediator and has helped establishing the Lebanese chapter of Mediate Group that has brought awareness to mediation in multiple law schools across Lebanon through ambassadors like Lebanese University, USEK, the Islamic University of Lebanon, the Beirut Arab University, and Sagiz University, and so on. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Without any further delay, let us begin. I would request the speaker to take the session forward and enlighten us all.
Thank you, Navjeet. Can you hear me well?
Yes, you're audible.
All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And I want to thank also the Plotix for hosting me and Navjeet also for volunteering your time with us today. Before starting, I want just to quickly apologize if I do not articulate well my words. I had an oral surgery a couple of days ago, and this is why we had to reschedule basically the date of the webinar, which was set for yesterday, basically. So I know we are all here today to discuss what the title of the webinar is, which is Understanding Middle East Politics. But I want to draw your attention to something essential, is that we will never be able to understand Middle East politics, and neither one of us here today will be able to understand it. And I hope this will not be deceiving for you, and I won't start seeing you leaving the session one after the other. So hang on, we will discuss why we won't be able to understand this. And I'm just gonna start sharing my screen first before going ahead and starting. You're gonna notice throughout the session that the presentation is basically focused on earth colors that are colors of natural resources, and which is like basically the main richness of the Middle East. I'm gonna put my screen on full. We're gonna try to take any question you have, by the way, if you want to drop your questions in the chat, and I'm gonna try to look at them every now and then, and Navjeet will help me with that. We will be answering mainly the most relevant questions to the presentation. Of course, this is just a quick note. So this is the outline that we will be working accordingly throughout the presentation. We're going to try to define, first of all, what is the Middle East from a geographic perspective, geographic, topological, anthropological, until getting to the point where we will be able to understand and define the Middle East from a geopolitical perspective, because it's very important to understand the first part in the beginning. So, as you can see, this is the map of what is the MENA region, or the MENA region, the Middle East and North African region. The Middle East is basically a territory just 1 second. I'm gonna try to pick up that pen to, all right, to spotlight where I am pointing at. All right, so Middle East is a territory positioned in the center of 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and Africa. The debate over the usage of the term MENA region is basically related to the countries from a geographic perspective and from a political perspective. So for the purpose of this presentation, I will be using the Middle East term and referring to the countries that are part of the League of Arab States. And I will tell you later on we will discuss what is the League of Arab States. So just general information, the Middle East region covers, sorry, not the Middle East region, the MENA region, the one highlighted in yellow and pink, covers over 15 million square kilometers, according to the IMF. And according to World Bank data, the region has a population estimated of at 500 million, and this is around like 6% of the world's population. And the term Middle East, as you may know, is the most common term and the most popular used worldwide. However, the term intersects with other terms, and we're going to see with which terms it does intersect. All right, here are the different terms and their definition and what do they exactly mean. So the Middle East is basically the eastern and southern shores of the Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Peninsula, which goes from the Red Sea until the Persian Gulf and Iran and North Africa. We're going to see this more clearly. Let me again annotate that on the screen so it could be easier for you to understand. This is the Middle East, the Mediterranean Sea. This is the eastern shore, and this is the southern shore. This is the Red Sea here, and this is the Persian Gulf. So it's from here until here, and with Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. This is the MENA region. We're going to go back to the table. Here is noted what are the countries that are from on the eastern and southern shores. The Arabian Peninsula basically is also the area in between the Red Sea until the Persian Gulf. And sometimes we refer to the Middle East as the Near East. And there's the term the Levant, which means the Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. So this is geographically. What is the role of this geographic location in the world in regards to the world? To get to that point, we're going to discuss a little bit the League of Arab States before. I'm sure a lot of you have never heard of the League of Arab States, which is an international organization or a regional organization similar to the EU or the NATO or the OPEC or any other organization in the world. But the thing about the League of Arab States is that it's, as you can see in front of you, it's the oldest existing international organization. It was founded in 1945. And how it was founded is what I'm going to discuss with you and is not mentioned in front of you on the screen. During the World War II, the intensification of the Nazi and the fascist pressures on the European countries, where the colonizers that are basically Britain and France, made these colonizers decide to limit the turmoil in the Arab countries. So the leaders of the Western countries promised the Arabs independence after the end of the World War. So they started expressing their support to any trend that would welcome the independence and the union. And that was basically a speech by Anthony Eden, that was the Prime Minister of the UK in 1941. Based on these declarations, some of the Arab leaders started moving towards the establishment of the League of Arab States. And back then, it was the leaders of the countries mentioned: Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Transjordan, which means Jordan and Palestine. So the leaders of these countries met in Egypt, exchanged views regarding the idea of this league, and decided to hold a summit for the Arab leaders, and that was around 1943. So after the end of the World War II and the victory of France and Britain and the US, the Western countries tried to abandon the promise that they had given already to the Arab leaders. So despite their support during all the period of the war for the unity of the Arab states and the independence and so on. But at that time, there was a lot of pressure from the public opinion in the Arab world and from the newspaper that was already wanting to create this unity in the Arab world. What happened at that time was that the Western countries were trying to divide. Meanwhile, the public opinion in the Arab countries was wanting to create this unity. So there was a lot of international conferences at that time. Among them were the Tehran conference, the Casablanca conference, and the Yalta conferences that were trying to figure out what was happening, what to do with the Arab countries at that point. And the international formula, basically, that was from the Western countries formulated, is to create an organization under the umbrella of the UN that will cooperate with the UN to preserve peace and security. But as I have mentioned to you, the public opinion was headed towards, in the Arab countries, was headed towards the creation of this unity. So in 1944, the Egyptian prime minister sent an invitation to the Arab governments that had already attended the first meeting with him, the 7 countries listed there, to participate in preliminary consultation to create some kind of unity and formulate some kind of proposal to achieve this unity. And this happened, and they met in Alexandria in 1944, and the attending delegates were from the countries that mentioned, but the leaders in this summit mentioned that they did not wanted to create a league whose decision would be binding on all of the countries. So the formula was that we want to create a league whose decisions would be binding only on the ones who accept them. So this would not, for them, interfere in the sovereignty and the independence of the states. So disregarding that, Egypt had already planned a full-fledged project for the Arab League by creating a regional organization on the basis of cooperation and mutual understanding and coordination and all of that, all heading toward forming an Arab unity and an Arab nationalism. But they always were disregarding any intention to formulate some kind of political party or an Arab political party or a unified Arab political wave for the Arab states that will be joining the League of Arab States. Its principles are the following, which are: commit to the principles of the UN, have legal equality among member states, no state would intervene in the other states' affairs, and mutual cooperation. The charter of this league also mentioned the following objectives. I'm not going to go through all of them now, but I want you to pay attention to the words highlighted in bold. Coordination between members, those are the objectives. Coordination, discussions, strengthening ties through coordination again, more coordination and more cooperation and more consideration to the interests. So we can see here that the League's role was nothing related to a legislative role or a regulatory role or so on. It was mainly, as you can see from the terms, related to a jargon affiliated to diplomacy, just diplomatic relationships between the Arab countries. So that's the League of Arab States' role in the Arab states. And by the way, today it has 22 countries, member states. I think it was mentioned earlier that Syria's membership has been suspended since 2011, which means since the start of the civil war. But today it's being reconsidered, especially that there are like a lot of efforts to reunite and reintegrate Syria within the Arab region, within the Arab Cooperation League. So that's the role of the League of Arab States. It's purely diplomatic, not regulatory in any way. I mean, it's completely different to the EU's role or other international organizations, if you want to say, but this is some kind of regional cooperation, let's say. So moving from that, to understand the role of the Middle East, as we have spoken earlier, I just wanted to go through the League of Arab States so we can understand a little what's the dynamic between these countries. The role of the Middle East, previously mentioned from a geographical perspective, and I'm going to continue talking about that, is characterized by dryness, by drought, and the majority of its countries suffer from a rising scarcity of water. So most of the lands are deserts, not deserts. However, it's the position, the geographical position. If we want, we can go back, but it's like the slide is just in the beginning, and now we're in the middle of the slides. So I'm not going to go back to the map in the beginning, but try to remember what was the map like. The position of the region of this region is from the south. It's on the edge of the dry tropicals, the African tropics, and there's like mountains bordering this area also. And this means geographically that this feature in geology, I'm sorry, helps the retention of waters when it's raining. And this retention of water will mean in the future, not in the future, but I mean throughout time, that it can capture rain and it can store it, and these can erupt into springs and wells with high levels of the storage. And this has been mainly the reason behind the integration of life in this region, despite the dryness and despite the desertic atmosphere of this region, or geographic aspect of it. Yet those rivers and wells, despite their important presence and their importance in the role of the life of this region, they are shared by countries whose water projects collide with different opinions and different political perspectives and different religions and different beliefs and so on, which indicates basically that there will be no end to this problem anytime in the foreseeable future. Now, I know that we are right now, as we speak, headed towards a power shift, a change in power with everything that is happening. The governance is switching from unipolarity to multilateralism, and we are headed toward a formula of power sharing in the world. So maybe this change in the power, this shift in power would help this restless Middle East and would help also ease the tension between the countries. I just want to ask Navjit, before continuing, if there are any relevant questions to what have been mentioned until the moment before continuing.
Ms. Matar, there are no relevant questions as well. We can continue.
All right, perfect. So it's important now to highlight that this close proximity between dryness and fertility, the fertile soil, and the overlap also between them has created and established a controversial social and political relationship among the countries in this area. And this controversion is characterized by the intensity and complexity between primitivism and the urbanization, nomadism and civilization, tribes and the states, and also the migration and the stability. Before delving more into that, those are pictures, some pictures of different areas of the Middle East. This picture is from the Dead Sea, and the others are also from different parts. All right, so this table will show you every country and what its economy relies on. And as you can see, this is the first table and this is the second table. These tables are for the basically Arab countries, not necessarily member state of the League of Arab States, but not all the countries of the Middle East, the MENA region, I mean. As you can see, there's a lot of reliance on oil production, a lot of reliance on gas, a lot of reliance on agriculture, and this highlights the richness of this area and these resources and these natural resources. All right, so I hope that by now we have tried to understand a little the geographical aspects of the instability and the reason of the instability of the Middle East countries. So it's important now to understand from a geopolitical perspective what's the deal with this instability. I want you to look at this in the same way that I will be mentioning it, and I don't have like here tables and other. No, not that. Okay, we will remain on that slide. So in order to understand the geopolitical perspective, I want you to look at the following with me. The political structure of the Gulf, and why am I talking about the Gulf in here more specifically in the Middle East? It's because of the oil production is centered in the countries of the Gulf. So the political structure of the Gulf is exposed to a growing imbalance caused by the shocks of the successive oil wars that are mentioned in front of you. I mean, as you can see, Iraq had emerged from an 8 years war with Iran. Then its army invaded Kuwait in 1991. So this was followed by an international campaign, obviously, that restored things to their normal level, or whatever you want to define normal with at this point. I mean, the international intervention was basically from the US, and this is another topic that we can postpone to another probably session, that because it's very long. But in fact, at that time, whenever the war ended and peace was reestablished and things were back to normal, the Gulf entered into a phase of political instability that did not end with the end of the war season, I mean. So the leaders of the Arab oil-producing countries decided to come together, and in order to avoid social and political rifts in the region, they decided to rely on the direct US military presence in their territories. So this would explain to a great extent the continuous presence of these external or foreign forces in the Middle East and the Gulf region, because for them, it meant that their presence equals stability. So this presence sooner than later, as you can see, turned into becoming a necessary presence for the continuation of their regimes. However, the effect of the political infrastructures that is based on the rentier oil economy remained inherent in the course of the modern inception of the state of the Gulf countries. Let me tell you why am I saying that. First of all, this is due to the factor to, once again, I'm going to mention geography at that point and history of this area. so it's due to the fact that this has become an inherent part of the modernization of these states is linked to the triangular relationship between the state, the city, which represents the modern state, and the tribe once again. So since the city constitutes the state and what it represents from modernization and all, it was time for the tribal community to come together with modernization to create a state. And this has continuously created a lot of turmoil between this triangular, I'm sorry, can you hear me? Because it's saying here that my internet connection is unstable. Just checking.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, perfect. So this triangular and unending fight between the three aspects have mean that there will always be an unstable political infrastructure in the decisions that will be made, and the longevity of a particular idea to build a state on. So now that we have a little bit of idea of why is it a region of continuous instability from a geographic perspective that leads to a geopolitical perspective, we always talk about the Middle East. When we mention Middle East, we say oil. Have anyone ever wondered what has been in the Middle East before oil? So before oil, and this is a very interesting thing, the pre-oil activities were basically trade. And more specifically, this region was known for the trade of pearls. Babylonians used to call pearls the eyes of the sky. So in the past 2 centuries, and until the beginning of the 20th century, the trade of pearl have become an important commodity that attracted those seeking profit and quick wealth. But pearl fishing has become of great importance, and until the beginning of the 20th century, it was exported first to Bombay from the Middle East, from the Gulf more specifically to Bombay, and from there to world markets through the economic channels of the British colonialism. And this created a trade association between India and the Gulf, whose effects have till the day still remain. So Indian merchants used to give captains and divers long-term loans so that they could tighten control over the pearl trade. And there was like a group of Arab brokers that used to settle between the two groups, the Indian traders and the Arab sellers. And it's important to highlight here that the fishing areas of the pearl were, of course, on the shores, and they were controlled then again by tribes. So the shores mainly of Kuwait were the ones that were very famous with pearl fishing. So these fields were again controlled by tribes, and pearl production was controlled by them. In all cases, the production of the pearls was a seasonal work, and it meant that a large number of workers and divers and the whole ecosystem would stop working as the season stops. So they had to find other alternatives for this. And oil production started early in the early first 20th century. I have mentioned here, like this is some quick reference to how the oil was discovered. The first oil discovery is attributed to a British company in Persia. It used to be Persia before, now it's Iran. And it's an interesting story to see how the course of things have impacted the course of the history has impacted the production of oil until the moment in this area, more specifically in Iran. the discovery of this well of oil in Persia led to the formation of the APOC company that was purchased later on by the British government, which meant that the British government had complete control over the Iranian oil, and they started signing agreements for 60 years that would establish payment for Iran. And as mentioned here, it was 4 British pounds per ton of crude oil exported. And of course, they denied Iran any right to control oil exports. So, of course, it was at that time a reason for the leaders of this nation to start voting for the nationalization of this industry. But of course, it was faced with refusal from Britain and the US, so they staged a coup, and then they started producing their own agreements with different governments. And then afterwards, until the 50s and the 70s, it was a period of a lot of instability, and there was a lot of things that happened at that time. A lot of events happened at that time that led to the decrease in production of oil in Iran. And so it was not attending to the agreements that it had with different countries, with external parties. And then there was the Islamic Revolution in Iran. But till the moment, today, presently, of course, as you would know, the oil industry in Iran is nationalized. It's not privatized. And I'm not going to talk about the JCPOA today because it's a very long and a very extensive topic that no one session would maybe be able to talk about the details of this deal. Other than Iran, there was also the Gulf, the oil of the Gulf, which was discovered in Saudi Arabia in 1930, I think. That's it, in 1930. This is a picture of the first this is a picture of the first pipeline, I'm sorry, that was discovered basically and drilled by Americans in Saudi Arabia. It's very funny actually to see how this, not funny, but it's impressive actually to see how it started and how it is today. Saudi Arabia has the biggest financial market in the Middle East and is the most important country when it comes to oil production, and has an important financial market, and is currently substituting oil production with tourism and working a lot on in the hospitality sector as well. So I think that's it. That was it for our session today. It was mainly discussing briefly the reason of the turmoil, a geographical aspect of this region, and the geographical aspect that actually impacts the geopolitical aspect and what happens behind the scene, because it's important. I thought it was important to understand this in order to be able to shape a broader understanding to how things will move in the future. And I hope maybe we will have some time to create maybe a series of webinars to discuss in depth more important information related to what was mentioned throughout the session, and maybe discuss and put some questions to what could be happening in the future in accordance to what we know now. Navjit, to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a vibrant, interactive, and knowledgeable session. I would also like to thank all the participants for joining us. And I would request everyone to please fill up the feedback form before you leave in order to receive your certificates. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you don't want to miss any updates from Diplotics, follow us on our social media handles, and also join the WhatsApp update group sent in the chat box already. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you all soon. Thank you, everyone.